Yes, we'll call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting, October meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Adequate notice of the meeting has been given pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. At the time of the board reorganization in January of this year, the board adopted a regular meeting schedule for the year. Notice of the schedule was sent and was published to the Asbury Park Press on January 31st, 2025, and to the Two River Times on January 23rd, 2025. That notice was also posted on the bulletin board in Borough Hall and has remained continuously posted there as is required by statute. A copy of the notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the Borough Clerk. A copy of the notice has also been sent to members of the public as have requested such information in accordance with the statute. Adequate notice having been given, the board secretary is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Can we get a roll call?
Mr. Pavlik,
Here.
Mrs. Drummond, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Schluter,
Here.
Mr. Heller,
Here.
Mrs. Persora,
Here.
Mrs. Casey, here, Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Forte, here.
Okay, so since we're kind of moving things around a little, and since some people may have to leave, I'll make a motion that we approve the September minutes.
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Pavlik,
yes.
Mr. Schluter,
Yes.
Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Mrs. Persora,
Yes.
Okay, so new business, well, we don't really have any new business since we don't have any applications, but we'll go straight to the old business, which is Bicentennial Hall and Fisk Chapel.
you want to do those dates or you want to wait on?
Oh, yes, you did say that. I apologize, but we'll do the dates. So go ahead, let's do the dates. If you have a calendar, we can.
So I went through the calendar and tried to identify anything that I thought might be a potential conflict.
Okay.
I guess it looks like, looking back at it, the only one that I saw was the Thursday, suggesting the Thursday, May 28th as a date, because the council meeting is on the Tuesday, the 26th, because of Memorial Day.
Monday, the 25th is Memorial Day, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so the 28th would be that Thursday.
And then other than that, everything else lined up the last, or the fourth Tuesday of the
Okay.
month without any conflicts that I saw.
Do you want to go through those dates? Do you want to do it right now?
Sure.
Okay, so would be January 27th. February 24th. March 24th. April 28th. We just said May 28th. June 23rd. July 28th. August 25th. September 29th. 22nd, sorry about that. October 27th. November 24th. And December, December 29th. No, 22nd.
Now, let me just look. Is that like too close to the hop?
I mean, no worse than the 29th. What we've done on years past, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the only other way would be maybe to try and do it like the week before, but.
Do you by chance know when Thanksgiving is in November?
November. Thanksgiving's the 26th.
Okay, so our meeting would be on the November meeting.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then December, yes, so we would be the Tuesday. And Christmas on the 26th is, I'm sorry, in 2026 is on Friday the 25th.
Yeah, I mean. Generally, that's a light.
Yeah.
month Anyway, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe it's, okay.
I guess I'll make a motion that we approve those dates, subject to further review and conflict.
I'll second that.
Mr. Pavlik,
Yes.
Mr. Schluter,
Yes.
Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Mrs. Persora,
Yes.
Mrs. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
and Mrs. Forte.
Yes.
Okay, so as I was saying before, the main item that we have on old business is Bicentennial Hall, Fisk Chapel. When we were in attendance last month, it was brought to our attention that a council agenda item was going to be some matters associated with Fisk Chapel, primarily the action items, but most importantly, the report back from Laura Berwin on the exterior paint color analysis and sort of a movement forward as to a decision or investigation as to what color was in store potentially for Fisk Chapel. At that point, since I was unable to attend that meeting, we nominated Stephen Heller to appear at that meeting. And through reasons that aren't necessarily described, I guess that some of the council members were not privy to the fact that you were going to be there on behalf of the commission. So I understand that when that topic came up, there were some questions asked, and so not much interaction between yourself and the council members. My apologies for that in terms of you being placed in an uncomfortable position. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. We kidded about it a little bit off the record. However, I'd like you to initially tell us, not necessarily, I don't want to know bad things or what happened procedurally, but just tell us what happened, what your recollection was, and what went on, reporting back to the commission as to your interaction and what you found out.
Sure, I'll talk about what my intent was representing us, and what my takeaways were, and I think Elise was there, at least during the discussion, right, you were sitting in the audience. But I attended, as a liaison, and I announced that, but I wasn't permitted to participate, so I didn't have any participation at all in the workshop. But I'll leave that aside.
What do you mean, we're not needed, how did that manifest itself?
I raised my hand to ask a question. Well, I first told Chris I was here for the representing the commission as a liaison, where should I sit? He said it's fine to sit in the audience, you can participate from there. And then the workshop began. And I had a pretty quick question, and I raised my hand to ask a question, but the mayor said, you have to wait till public discussion.
Was there anybody else that was in the audience that was a designate or
No.
representative of any other commission that was interacting with them at that
No.
point?
No.
Was there any question and answering going on before the public portion?
No,
Okay,
other than the workshop, other than the
Yeah.
council.
yeah,
And by the time, so I tried to intervene, I tried to ask a question twice, and I was told by the mayor, no, you're public. And, but when the workshop was over, Laura left. So there was no opportunity, and I ran out at all and asked her a question about could she provide a certain amount of information. She was very pleased to say, yeah, I could do that. And then it had to come from Fairhaven rather than from me. She wanted to know who to represent. Was I on the Historic Association, or was I on the commission? I said I was on the commission. They voted, so I'm here as a liaison. But that's passed now. But my intent as a liaison was two things: to understand the paint color chronology, if somebody had it, through documentation. So I think our purpose is to pick the most authentic color that we have recently documented. And documentation usually means you got some kind of original reference, you have something to go back to. And the way I did that, I was simply going to ask, give us what you know about the colors of this chapel from its inception in 1882 to 1974. Doesn't really matter what color it is after 1974, because it wasn't owned by the congregation any longer. And the second part of that question, and for which eras of its existence do we not really know? So what do we know and what do we don't know?
both very valid questions.
Yeah, and then if we have enough that information like that with high probability, we could probably identify the authentic color for 19th century Fisk Chapel. The second, and my thoughts was, if they had positive documentation of these questions, that might be enough to authenticate the consultant's recommendation. But we're not there for just the recommendation, we're there for the authentication of the recommendation. And then the third question was just to inquire as to the value of paint analysis, because I didn't know if they had done it or if they hadn't done it, and if they hadn't done it. We were previously told at this meeting that they would be asked to do it, so I don't know what happened between then and this. So my key takeaways were, first of all, I did not receive any of these materials, so I didn't know what council had. I couldn't hear everything that was going
And
on.
when you say these materials, you're referring to primarily the September 19th, 2025, letter report from Laura Berwin from the Goldstein Partnership.
I don't know, when I didn't receive any materials at all, so I don't know what council had, but they were talking about pictures and documents, I'm assuming this is it.
Right.
Subsequently, you were provided with a copy of this, and so putting two and two together, it seems as though the testimony that was offered by Ms. Berwin was consistent with what's
Yeah.
contained in the September 19th document.
So if you look closely at the document, you'll see where she got what she presented. So she was 90% confident that the primary color utilized during the early Fisk Chapel history was white. Right, but that's the first one. Elise, did you take that away? That's
That was, yes.
okay. She had period photographs, though I didn't hear dates, in which the chapel was white, and those photographs are in here, and they're still not dated, and they're still not referenced. And so that was one piece of evidence. She studied different exterior boards on the chapel and said the earliest layers were white, and she couldn't see anything below them that wasn't white. I said that was her second piece, and she also noted that other research supported the trend of white churches at the time. Those are some of the things I recall. Council would initially seem satisfied with the rigor related to selecting white, but after a council member had a question about was there a paint analysis done, there was another whole new conversation, and I took away that they wanted to understand the cost and value of a paint analysis. And several members said that they wanted to make the right decision on color, but waiting. And that waiting to do so should not delay restoration work. So they're saying color, if we're not gonna say this is gonna be it, it should not, the restoration should go on. All the other work that's planned should go on because the color can be figured out in the next couple of weeks or some period of time. So it was left indefinite. The gestalt was the white, but we're not quite sure we want to make sure we're doing it right. A couple of people were doing it.
Did you give any explanation for the 10% that possibly she believed may have not been white, or what?
She didn't say that there was a percent not being right. She said, I'm 95% confident.
Oh,
Either right. Either she said probability is that it was white or it's her confidence. And
Was there any discussion or about the green color and about any analysis that had previously been done years ago, arriving at the green color?
no discussion about the green color that I recall. Did you?
Not to the end, when I called in, towards the end of the meeting, I asked if they would take into consideration Pat Drummond's old research.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
there was a question about that.
And what was the response? Would they take that into consideration?
Yeah, they said, yeah, we could provide it.
I mean, obviously, and the issue is the research, because it was done in the 1990s. There's been reference to a paint color analysis that's been done, but I don't know that I know that I've never seen anything. I've never seen any document. We don't really recall who that person was. And so
Yeah.
I don't know what we have to support that green
A
color.
different color. And I don't know if it was, there was in the report, in one of the documents here, reference to Mark Alexander Pavlov, Ocean Grove, who did a Fisk Chapel restoration project in 2010. And it was called a Chapel Preservation Project Action Plan. And it was related in some way. Was there a celebration in 2017, like a 100th anniversary?
I don't recall, 2017, does
That was, well,
Yeah,
Maybe that 2012, and that 2010 project incorporated prior preservation plans from 2000 to 2005.
yeah,
And the goal was historic authenticity and appropriate colors, but it didn't say anything about color analysis.
right, so that document was also provided,
Yeah.
this document
Yeah.
that was updated in 2010. I looked at it again as well, I think, to see if there was any guidance with regard to color, and there is not.
No.
You started to say something, Katie, about
yeah,
that.
two things. Well, one is a bigger question. When we had our meeting here, the last meeting we had in September, I thought the consensus was that this body would have some sort of advisory opinion on the color, and even if it wasn't even if we're not the final decision makers, that we, the HPC, would offer an opinion. And then that's how, Tracy had made the suggestion, a good suggestion, that we had one representative. And that's how Steve's role was there. Was that brought up, that a
But
way?
Tracy wasn't there.
No, was the question brought up, Steve, can you go back to the HPC and you come back to us with any research you have? Like, was it sort of a two-way workshop where they were?
No, I didn't participate at all. I was not allowed to say anything.
But at any point, did the council say we should get what the we should see if the
No.
HPC has any opinion on this?
I did stand up during the public session. Just to explain again, and I told the mayor, and he said,
Yeah.
oh, I apologize. And then I just told him what the two questions were going to be, which weren't answered at the meeting, and,
By that time, Ms. Berwin
by
had
left,
left.
and she had left, and she was very, I talked to her in the hallway, and she said, yeah, I'll send you guys whatever you need, but nobody asked further about the, commission.
So, when it was brought to our attention, last meeting, again, we weren't certain how far along the process
Right.
was. It was at least our belief that it was the initial report back from Ms. Berwin, not knowing what a timeline had been. I know that, Tracy Cole, Councilperson Cole, is on the Zoom meeting. She probably has some insight as to what the timing is of it and where that currently sits with regard to the council. I don't know whether you can chime in, Tracy, on that.
Sure. Hi, Art. Hi, everyone. First, Steve, I'd like to also acknowledge, I think that was a pretty uncomfortable position you must have been in, and I took steps to make sure that wouldn't happen to you. Immediately following our Thursday evening meeting, there was a ribbon cutting at DPW where I reviewed explicitly what HPC had planned and that you would be in attendance. Frankly, then I got on the road for a long car ride up to Newport to see my daughter, and understanding what has transpired, I really, moving forward, will now always put that in an email, because persons I spoke to seem to have forgotten when you were present at the council meeting. It just seemed to have not been, it just went out of his head. So I'm sorry that happened to you. Obviously, I take this process seriously, and I took the steps to make sure you would be in a better positioned. That said, the mayor runs the meeting, and it is during workshop, that's typically council deliberations. He has the prerogative to open it to the public, usually doesn't, but the upshot is all the documents that the council reviewed that night, you now have. That was an important step. I wanted to make sure that you received that. And to Katie's point, importantly, the memorandum sent, and I'm going to say it may have been in August, correct me if I'm wrong, or Sheila, does, put into formal language, you anticipate an advisory role, and that your comments, recommendations, and analysis will be made available to council. And that's been acknowledged, and it is in alignment with our local ordinances. You do have jurisdiction over the exterior of the building. It's in the historic district. So, Katie, to your point, we've kind of, if you want to use this, like plug that hole, that's established. So if that gives you a little bit of a reassurance, I do regret not being there for that meeting on September 30th. I think couldn't be helped. It's the only meeting I've missed, unfortunately. So, but Art, you asked about timing. And so this is brought forward, perhaps maybe slightly premature, meaning it's not all fully baked. The council reviewed it once in a workshop format, which is typically the way these things roll out. And then I think the sooner this body weighs in, the better. That said, you don't want to rush it, right? If you're having a process, then we can advise the council that that process is ongoing, not to drag it out, but to just communicate as to, should you choose to do that, of course, that's entirely your choice. But the architect Laura Berwin's work among the discussion around the bicentennial hall color is also a list of work items that you all have in front of you. That's a piece that she's still working on that I encourage you to look at, weigh in on, and see if there's any work items that you feel may be added or discussed. There's a couple things I can see that it would be good for this commission to discuss. I'm interested in your thoughts on it. And I know we have a damaged stained glass window that isn't on here, for example. So in addition to the paint color, there is this piece of work. But this still has to be completed. Your thoughts are part of how it gets completed. And then also Laura's work is to really finish the scope of work and then draft it in the form that such that it can live within a bid document that will then get put out. So there's at least 2 steps that the council still has to take. And I would suggest that those are probably 2 separate meetings. Could it get slammed into one meeting? I'll be honest with you, I suppose so, but I do believe that the council would honor your contributions in terms of the work, the punch list items, and be interested in your thoughts. And
Tracy, on the, I'm sorry, continue, I didn't know if you were gonna.
no, go right ahead.
I was gonna say, with regard to the other items in the scope of work, which is contained on the September 19th, 25 report from Laura Berwin. And this goes out to you too as well. So was there any discussion as to that in terms of prioritizing these things?
No, it was a workshop on paint color.
So it was really, what's the status of these other items that Laura has Ms. Berwin has recommended? Mechanical, electrical, civil work, architectural work and interior. Is that something that is being prioritized and addressed, or you did kind of say that it's still a work in progress?
Yes,
Where's that at?
and the painting of Bicentennial Hall is part of this.
I understand, but I mean, exclusive of the paint, these other items you say you want us to sort of weigh in on, which I understand, but what is the status of of those things? Are they planning on making a decision at the next meeting, or where are we at sort of timing and procedurally with these other work items?
I could do my best to find out. I would be surprised if Laura has it finalized for the next meeting. But let me see if I can find that out for you. I know that, and because I followed up with all the players, and her work is not done. And that sometimes is all you get from government. I am so sorry to say that, because I'd love to be able
And,
to.
it's items of work, and, all of the things obviously are very valid that look like they're deficiencies. But to be quite frank for us, I mean, unless there's any items to add to it, but without really physically looking at the document or talking to anybody that's been physically looking at the structure rather, it's kind of hard to either, add to it or prioritize these things. Obviously the structural things and the things that are going to lead to further deterioration would be the primary things to address, but it's kind of hard for us to make any kind of recommendations in that respect. You did mention that there's some other things that you think needed to be added. I think you mentioned a stained glass window. What are those things?
Yeah, and if this helps at all, it doesn't need to be prioritized. All this work will happen. So will all get bundled in a bid document and go out to bid. The intention is to complete all of the maintenance items in this next wave of work repair / maintenance. So there's no need to prioritize it. I think we're just looking to make sure it's complete. And if it helps, I can also ask if Laura can come to a commission meeting.
Yeah, that would be excellent if she could possibly do that.
I will ask.
And we're gonna get back to the color, but the only thing about that list, I mean, a core question is simply, is there anything we're doing on the list at all that changes material or structure of the exterior of the building? And if there's anything, like if are they removing a window or you take down a chimney, which I think they're gonna do. From that historical perspective, we would wanna know if
Yeah.
the structure or the material is changing.
Of course, yeah, and it doesn't, looking at it, it looks, I mean, the only thing that really jumped out at me, because the masonry chimney is not observable from the street.
Right.
And I think that's kind of you even noticed that, Joe,
That's
that's a
a
big
more
deal.
recent chimney.
Yeah.
When I was looking at 2010 action plan. That's something that was raised back then, so it's been happening for a while. Obviously, the removal, rather the siding trim, base flashing repair, repair of the front porch columns, and also replacement of windows would be things that will fit into those categories. So yeah, clearly, those are things we want to weigh in on. And just to add to this, and just so we can kind of get a full picture, I do understand, and maybe Elise, you can chime in on this too. I understand that there was an interim or interval meeting between the Historic Association addressing these same issues or considering them. And there was a decision made by the association to, I guess, outlay a certain amount of funds and maybe to try to find somebody to do either a complementary or comparative analysis of paint color. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so one of the 3 things that I brought up during the end of the last council meeting was, could we provide Pat Drummond's research, which just to update you guys, we cannot locate, we cannot find. As of yet, but who knows, I mean, I'm still actively looking, it might turn up, but as of right now, we can't find any of the prior research that she did. And then the 2 other things I had asked was if they had any idea when the final decision would be made, whether it's green or white and what shade, and they, no answer to that either, but the final thing I did ask is that if hypothetically, if the association wanted to fund another analysis, could we provide that, and would they consider it? Which initially was shot down.
Shut down by.
Shut down by.
It was just saying that it would potentially be denied.
Who shot that down?
Mayor Hopper.
And did he give any kind of reason why?
No, not that I can recall.
They
But-
generally didn't want to spend any money on anything related to the project.
Which I applaud fiscal responsibility, and I understand that.
Which, yeah, so, but then in our last board meeting, we discussed it, and we moved to, look into what that maybe would cost, and something that we would like to maybe consider, depending on how quotes, and so next step would kind of be that, finding out how much an analysis would be, and then depending on what those numbers are, bring it back to the board and go from there.
Okay, so I mean, what's the thought? The thought was to, as long as it's not cost prohibitive, to look into doing that. And has there been any, have you found out anybody to perform that, and any kind of idea as to cost?
No, not yet.
What do you think the horizon is on that? When do you think that decision will be made?
Yeah, go ahead.
I independently, because I wanted to just understand the payment system, and I connected with someone about the pain analysis, and the woman's name is Dorothy Crosser, and she's a director in this Building Conservation Associates, and it's a national firm. They specialize in material science and it's pain analysis. And I was just trying to learn what are the key points about the paint, because if we can get the sort of the chronology down and just say how confident are we that it's authentic, or if there's some reference, you might have enough stuff now. But she did bring up something. She said the selecting of the samples for the paint analysis is really critical, because there's a lot of chemical and physical degradation, and it changes the structure of the wood, and therefore her main point was the experience matters in these things, because things are missed with the naked eye. And one of the key I think one of the things that was impressive that Laura said, or at least impressed people, was I went around, looked at all the boards, and I looked at the cross sections, and I just saw white, and I didn't see anything below the white. And this person said that doesn't mean just all the boards, because between the pigment and whatever is used to seal the pigment, it degrades, changes colors, it does all kinds of things. And they basically take samples, and they do various kinds of imaging and chemical analysis. She sent me some papers, if you wanted to learn more about it.
Where are they located? I mean,
She's in Philadelphia, they're in New York, they're in Washington. They're very well informed, they do a lot of historical buildings.
would they physically perform a visit, or would they want a sample to be taken and sent?
No, they would have to perform it. So I asked her, I said, so, what would it cost if we don't have any money? And she said, we have to come, we have to look at the building and decide where the best samples come from. They would take about 8 to 10 samples, but she would send an intern from Penn, who's a science major, and she graduate intern from Penn, who's been working with him for about a year. She was trying to say, give the best price she could come up with, so this is not a contract, I was not negotiating, right? But she said they would reduce the cost by using this experienced Penn intern to take the sample, so literally the time to drive out here, if you didn't use this intern, it would cost you $500 just to show up. And what they would provide, to keep it reasonable, is a memo style report with an explanation of the findings, including chromochronology, if it's possible. The other thing they do is if they find a color, they give you a match to a couple current paint companies that have a color that might be close to that. So they find colors and they tell you what paint color you should use. And she said she would oversee it. She's the director of that regional office, and it'll be $1,200 to $1,500.
Is they, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's way less than they normally do. I mean, they do a lot more stuff, and then this is sort of cut down. You wanna know what the color was, we can figure it out.
It's a very narrow,
Very
it's a
narrow,
singular color probably, I mean, I guess it would be like multiple colors too, if we looked on.
That's what their intent would be, to show all the colors that science.
They use a device, it's spectron.
Yeah, yeah.
Spectronomy.
Yeah.
Spectronomy.
Yeah, they use
And
chemistry, they use all kinds of imaging, spectrum, and.
You were gonna say.
Yeah, I just want to offer just a few things. Number one, I was also struck that the Goldstein Partnership memo just has a sentence in there that says, we observed and we only saw white. And what Steve just said is consistent with the research that I also did with the Susan B. Anthony color researchers, as well as this organization in Rhode Island. And you went a lot further than I did, but they all said the same thing. The process is exactly as you stated. And number two is the flow that the mayor said no to the borough spending the money?
That, yes, so I said,
Okay.
do you guys, both, would the borough have any funds available, which was pretty much a no? And then if the Historic Association was willing to fund it, could we provide that to you? And
So it seems, here's where my logic is
that was a
going.
no
Here's where my logic is going.
initially.
My logic is going, we have some time. We don't want to wait too long, like Tracy said, do research, and it seems like Steve's given us an option for conducting our own research. Could the board fund fund this research independent of what the council is, so, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying to be a rebel, but
That's the idea.
so if we fund it and then we say, hey, dear council, here's what we learned, this is a research that we did, thank you to the Historic Association for funding it, this is what we learned. They still have the jurisdiction to make a decision, but then
I think it actually comes in a different way. I think that we maybe take it to motion and vote, and we could even do that tonight, assuming that they're gonna.
Yeah.
That the association is going to do this, whether or not we would work with the association.
Yes.
To do this research, and then not necessarily incorporate their findings or decide on their findings, but take it into account as opposed to what was, I think, somewhat cursory analysis done by Ms. Berwin. And just see what makes sense, and I guess take into consideration any other evidence that might come about between now and then, you know, maybe supporting this green color, if any of these old reports come about as well.
So I don't know, and everybody might already know this, and I apologize, this is my naivete if so. So on the NJ.gov, there was apparently a grant awarded in 2004, right? I think that's what this is. And I actually emailed it to the group, I just replied to Sheila's latest email. And it said, so it says that in 2004, there was a $227,000 grant by the state, Garden State Historic Preservation Fund. And it said the trust grant helped fund structural stabilization and some exterior restoration, including the painting of the clapboard and trim in historically appropriate colors. And there's a really shiny green color picture of Fisk Chapel that looks like it's freshly painted. Was it painted in 2004?
Yeah, about that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that the only indication we have of green?
No, I
Based
believe
on
in the 1990s, there was a analysis that was done.
And that's when they decided, let's paint it green in 2004.
Yeah, but I don't know of anybody, again, getting back to it, it's been referenced this after the scientific study, and that is the color that apparently was based on some type of samples of paint that were identified, how and where those samples were identified. And what process went into that, we don't know.
Right.
And again, even though there's been reference to the scientific study, I've never seen it, nor I've ever talked to anybody that's ever seen it. I know Pat Drummond has mentioned it,
Yeah.
but she's really not gone into any kind of
Yeah.
detail other than to describe it as pretty thorough
And she
study.
can't locate it.
And there's one newspaper article that I
We can't
found.
locate it.
There is one newspaper article after when the grant was, when they're about to paint, which referenced the names of the people that were contracted to do the paint research.
Oh,
I'll find, I'll find that article, it was the only, and Pat
maybe
said,
good, because maybe those people still have, I mean,
They're
they
still-
lost some data, right? They're historic paint people, they
Yeah.
keep these things, right, you know. they
There
keep
are,
our-
and there are references to color in the nomination form. For at the National Register, but it seemed like I think somebody gave.
Oh, no.
There's not reference, it says the building,
So I can reach out to them.
you know, there's.
it says the
Yeah.
building is white clapboard, but that was when it was, I believe that's when it was filed, it was 1976, whatever, and then
It was white, yeah,
It says the building has an exterior white clapboard, that's the description of the building.
Yeah,
That's
they
not
reference it all the
historic.
time, in this 1970s application, they say white everywhere.
Yeah,
I just want to share, I found a very interesting article which I shared with Steve about what white meant in the 1800s. And it's hard to bring up because of connectivity here, but it said that, oh, here we go. The whites actually were not pure whites like we discussed them today. They had, there was no such thing as a pure bright white. They had fillers, which often led to an off-white yellowish tinge.
Oh.
So
uh-oh.
so. No, the reason I bring this up is I heard someone once mention there's Fairhaven white,
Yeah,
and we have talked just in terms of. It's nice to drive down Cedar Avenue and your head swivels and you say, what is that building?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like other buildings in Fairhaven, and that's the first step that people have to realize there's an important historical building in town is
Mm.
that. And of course, then it's followed by, why does it look like the way that is awful? So, I just, in addition to us voting, hopefully to approve the color selection, if it did go to a air quote white, I think it needs to be a historical white that when people drive down Cedar Avenue, it looks like a historical building. Simple as that.
Okay, so I have, Elise has a copy of the Gabrielle in both, and so in that on page 83, and 83 through 85, there's a couple of photographs of 1975 when it was moved, and you can see what the structure looked like beforehand. It was some form of white, I don't know whether it's Fairhaven white or something. But it looks like it was white, it's obviously a black and white image, very difficult to tell, but you know, to the state of deterioration, and then it was repainted clearly in 1976, looking pretty new, that appears on page 84, and that's probably 1976, so probably that information that's contained in that document, the document to get it registered, and then the other request for the grant is probably based on what the color was at that point when people were looking for, so.
something that Laura could help us with, that, you know. I heard, probably we asked the question I was gonna ask, if she could provide us with the chronology, and her best understanding of colors, of the eras of color. If it was white, if somebody thinks it was white from 1882 on, she would say, we have good reason to believe it was white in the 19th century, and then it was white in the 20th century, and we wouldn't have to do anything else.
Well,
But I haven't seen any documentation of that, and it would be good to know, what we know and don't know, they might be able to fill in some blanks.
right, I mean, you would think that they're gonna come up with some type of conclusion when they do this analysis. What that conclusion is. Well, I mean, if it's inconclusive, then what evidence do we have? We have a bunch of photos, some of
Right.
which are seemingly old, although a couple of the photos that are attached in the Berlin report are actually consistent with what is depicted in the Gabriellen book, which looks like it's around 1976. So I don't know how old these photos are,
Yeah.
except for the one on the bottom left. But even though that may be cursory evidence, what do you have to support the green? What is there? there's nothing.
I suspect if you do a paint analysis, at least part of it will support the white, and it might get the dating back.
Yeah,
For our friends from Rutgers, this is an African American church that was built in 1882. And there are just a lot of questions about how they chose the color, and there's a different perception of colors in African American churches at that time, as you can imagine, not too long after Reconstruction, so.
What is the, does anybody know what the position is of the congregation? Does anybody, what do they say?
so I asked quite a number of them at a luncheon there, and I don't want to misspeak, but I got the sense that there's so many other things they're trying to deal with right now, that color of this chapel is last on the list. I actually asked Mrs. Blake, who's 107 years old. She's the oldest living member who actually worshiped there, and of course, she doesn't remember. Melanie Woods thinks she recalls it as white. They may recall it as white in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, but that doesn't mean that it was in the late 1800s. I would be curious to know that when the association made the decision to paint it, given that everything showed it was white, the Gabrielle book was white, the pictures were white, did someone come up to them and go, we're about to tell you something, will knock your socks off, it's actually green.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just curious about how that process or something made them decide in 1990 or,
It's,
2004.
yeah, I think they got.
yeah, something made them say, wow, we need to pivot on this
Yeah.
color.
Well,
Something they gave them
Pat said that
confidence.
she said that's what, when they did the analysis, that's what they found, and it was surprising that they found the green.
Yeah, so you have to
Yeah.
understand also that at
Yeah.
that point, there wasn't that much enthusiasm to maintain the structure. There was discussions as to demolishing it, selling the property. And the borough wasn't really that supportive of anything, really to preserve the building. As a result of the association and raising the
Yeah.
amount of money.
Yeah.
It was preserved, and I think it was really Pat, who at that point, saw to it, or she was one of the people, it was before my time, but saw to it that this paint analysis was done. And she was absolutely convinced, and I don't know that she made it, and I wish she was here to discuss it, but didn't make it a condition. But sort of said, we're gonna grant this money that we raised for Bicentennial Hall, but we then better have this painted green because this is the original authentic color, and I think that was the way it was really decided. And I just don't think that there was any opposition by anybody. They were just happy to get a free paint job, and the building obviously, although it would look materially different, it needed paint very badly, and so that's why that was done. And I think that, it was probably done haphazardly at that point, and I think that's outlined in the have lived report that institutes showed deterioration. I think we've all seen that it's was not greatest.
And I mentioned here before, when I visited historic Richmond Hill Village in Staten Island, I felt like I was in the middle of this campus, because all kinds of shades of green, not that vivid green,
Right.
almost like a mustardy green, so for 1800s buildings, so.
Tracy, we were with you before, and we just kind of diverged a little bit. Do you have anything to offer on this component of our conversation about paint color and analysis?
I respect the discussion, and I think I also want to just acknowledge that that this body has a right to be heard on this issue. And that's been my position with my other colleagues on council and with the staff, and I've got an agreement with that. I know it can feel a little uncomfortable right now because of the way that meeting played out on the 30th. And I'm going to request that either Laura can attend or perhaps just even briefly zoom in. Of course, someone's going to say if that costs money, we can't do that. But let me see where that goes. I guess one of the questions I would have for you, Mr. Chairman, is would the commission, if there's a time sensitive, if there's a time constraint, would you be willing to hold a special meeting to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, we could possibly do that if it becomes an issue, if it if it becomes sort of like a situation where a decision was made because we didn't have a scheduled meeting, I think everybody would be in the mindset that it's important enough for us to weigh in on it, that we
Yeah.
would be able to do that. At least I can say that. I don't think that anybody has any opposition to it.
I just want to have it in the back, should it become necessary in my discussions. So,
And I'm not, the discomfort, or I'm not worried about that at all. I don't think anybody on the commission's worried about that. I think really our desire and our focus would be to get it right. And I think that, anybody that looks at the Berwyn, and I mean this without any disrespect whatsoever, but it's clearly not a scientific analysis. There's a bit of guesswork there. I don't want to say it's preordained, but there just was some photos. There was no evidence to the contrary, so we think it's white. I think, and even if there was a 90%, certainty factor, this other scientific analysis may give us some insight as to that 10%. And I would think that Ms. Berlin would want to get it right too. And so if she's presented with some additional evidence, she could just weigh it with whatever she's done. And I would think that, it would behoove the council, Ms. Berwin, and any of us to not do it right. And any, the only thing I could think of that, would be a cost to the borough, which would be de minimis, would be the time that Ms. Berwin would spend either coming here or sort of contradicting or embracing whatever this separate analysis would be. She obviously, she's on the hour, she would spend time on it. But I think, it's not like we're requesting that the borough foot the bill. And I think, very gracious that the association is willing to do it. It doesn't seem like it's an extraordinary amount of money. And for what you, ideally, if you get this issue settled, it's well worth it. So I think it's, I'm certainly willing to put it up for a vote tonight to have us work with them to get this done. I think one of the things might be an issue though, if, the association may not have its decisions made. They may have to have a special meeting too, to make these determinations. So I don't know whether that will happen, but again, we will be willing to work with you. You have the budget, we don't. And so it's kind of contingent on what the association decides to do. One other question to Steve is, did they give you a time frame as to how long this process takes once they're here doing the sample?
I think it's a couple of weeks.
And they would provide some,
Yeah.
would they provide like a preliminary report?
They would provide what they would do the work, and they would provide a memo type report.
Okay, because I was gonna say,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that could zoom in, provide us, maybe we would have some questions beyond just a memo report. I mean, ideally, if we had a memo report and had that person and Ms. Berwin part of the meeting, I think we'd have all questions answered.
Right, you would have to tell me. So you would approach her informally or formally?
No.
Once this
Well-
director gets involved in time, it's like an attorney. So if she shows up for an hour meeting, she charges.
Yeah, no, I get that.
well, let me do what I do on my side in terms of the borough's professional, and which is Laura in this instance. And then if I could suggest, Steve, I believe you do have at least one vendor who could you give that contact information to Elise? That way, the Historic Association can take steps to get a quote and get something scheduled and get that piece started.
Lisa did say that you had identified that other group as well. That was,
Yeah, I can reach out to them.
we don't know if they're even around or anything.
I think they are still around. The woman that Pat had worked with, I think, is passed on, but
So do we have two? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, what's the name of that group?
I wanted, it's someone, Mary Ann something. The name is escaping me right now,
Okay, maybe,
but I have it written down.
okay, maybe it's provided to them.
Okay.
And Steve, what's the name of your company?
The company called, it's not my company, I have no association. They were referred by another historic person and highly recommend it, but I don't know them at all. It's the Building Conservation Associates. BCA.
Okay.
She's out of the Philadelphia office, and the woman's name, she runs that office, her name is Dorothy Kratzer. I can send it to you with contact information if you'd like. She also provided, like I said, a journal article on pain analysis and all the issues to do with it, and 2 examples of what they did. I think one was a church and one was one was a memo, a short example, and the other was a full example, and you can see the difference in. Like $1,000 versus $5,000,
How do you spell Crosser?
KROTZER.
Okay, anything else on this, from the association? No. When are you guys meeting again, and do you expect this to come up
Yeah, this will come up. Our next meeting's not until November 20th.
November 20th? Okay.
So Elise, at the last board meeting, which I was not at, was the vote to proceed with this or to think about it?
No, to proceed to get quotes and see how much it would be.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
we're right in line.
I mean, yeah, 'cause we
Timing
just-
is perfect.
We didn't, it could be 500, 5,000, whatever, it was, green light to go find out how much it would potentially be.
Alright, so we're all kind of chicken and egg here a little bit, but it sounds like the timeline is very in sync then.
Yeah, look, and I think, do you need to have a particular group? In other words, if you're bringing to a vote, this building construction associates, would you pose them as being, you got to get a little bit more information as to how much and maybe get an itemized bill as to what it would cost so that you can take it to a
Right.
vote, or would you just approve a certain budget that would ideally cover their costs, as Steve has mentioned, it would cost?
That's something that the executives would have to discuss.
And how, if at all, would this, reaching out to this other company, say, they do it for $12.50?
Yeah. You mean deciding between the two?
Exactly.
Something we're gonna have to also take a look at and see. I mean, at this point, we want it
Yeah.
definitely looked at and done.
I'll send you everything I have from her, and
Okay, thank you.
maybe I'll send you the reference, the person who referred them to me. So they really do a lot of historical work in Washington, Philadelphia, New York. They're not. The credibility was pretty obvious.
Yeah,
All right.
I have just
any-
one, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I have just one thought, and I don't know if I think I've said this to somebody, or at least one person out loud, but I think it would be very interesting. I know we're talking about green, we're talking about white, but it's possible that that building was many colors over the years, maybe not just green or white. And it'd be kind of exciting if the paint analysis were able to give us, I think Steve mentioned it as a chronology. As a chronology is a story, and we could round out those paint decisions with narrative, sort of as a timeline. And the story of this decision process, we'll call it the process that is still an interesting part of the historical narrative and has value in and of its own, in its own right. And I just wanted to throw that out there, understanding that whatever color it ends up being, it's all a very rich and interesting historical story, part of Fairhaven's historic fabric. And I'm glad that this particular group of people is invested in getting all the information. I think that's a nice thing for the community for many, many, many years to come.
Okay, I will make a motion that, this commission, work with the Historic Association and their offer to secure a scientific paint analysis, to further determine and to supplement the proofs that have already been submitted to identify the origin and original paint color history of Fisk Chapel.
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Pavlik,
yes.
Mr. Schluter,
Yes,
Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisora,
Yes.
Mrs. Casey,
yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Forte.
Yes.
And I deliberately left that very vague because, there's a lot of moving parts and I don't want to limit it. But obviously I would think that, if you guys do, if based on your discussions, you decided that you thought that one of these other people are more qualified. The association's desire is pretty consistent with what our desire is. So, we would, obviously have to abide by whatever that decision. I would think that maybe it would be a joint collaborative decision, but we may not have time on that, so we'll have to figure that
I think I have to get going. Is that okay? It doesn't,
Yeah. I don't-
any more votes anticipated or?
No, I don't, not that I can. I don't think I'm-
All right, well, thanks. I'll get filled in by, these two.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Take care. All right, anything else on, Bicentennial Hall or West Chapel? Tracy, anyone?
I do. So just to recap my takeaways, I'm gonna pursue professional attendance at one of your meetings, even if that's a special meeting. And I am going to try to get a sense of the workflow and understand. We want to make sure the cadence at the meetings doesn't leave HPC or Historic Association out of the process.
Yeah, and if it becomes an urgent item, then we do need to meet, you know, bring up the point
Right.
mentioned before, and we do need to meet, we will do that.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem urgent now, but you know, these things sometimes develop and you never really know.
Well, I do track it closely.
Yeah.
That said, even with my diligence, things do, I feel like it slipped a little. I would like to see the commission spend a minute on the list of work items. In particular, I'll just jump in and say I'm interested in your thoughts on windows. I'm not sure specifically what Laura's suggesting here, but can you discuss that? It's under architectural work includes and the exterior section.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, obviously, that was one of the items that Steve had brought up and I mentioned as well, that clearly would affect the exterior of the structure. It's something that we pay particular attention to in applications and, you know, we would clearly pay attention to here. But it's very hard because it's just sort of a concept item, window repair and installation of storm windows. I don't know whether that then is relating back to what's contained in the Pavlov report, which, you know, from 15 years ago, whether they're even talking about the same windows. So obviously we would want to have a role in that window design and determination, but I can't envision that a decision would be made in that regard that wouldn't involve this commission. She's, you know, again, this is a concept. I don't think she's making any decision. I would suspect that whatever she's offering, since it's a restoration, they would be period correct, windows and, you know, not what we jump to thinking of when we think of storm windows.
Yeah. Well, I
know.
think this, oh, sorry, Joe.
Go ahead.
I think that illuminates the point you were making earlier, or maybe I made it, about this being a work in progress. It's obviously still has to get much more specific in order for it to live in a set of bid documents. But prior to it getting fleshed out and inserted in bid documents, this body should have an opportunity to review the recommendations.
Tracy, where are the only windows I'm aware of at this are the stained glass windows. Which ones would get storm windows? Behind the stained glass? Are there other windows that have storm windows?
Well, Katie, that's a good question. I mean, I have the same question, really. I think and I think everybody does. I don't have that answer. I have what you guys have here. So
Yeah. Unless
there's
it was just
respect.
generic, it might have just been a generic, this is what we do. But I can't imagine putting storm windows behind those stained glass, right?
No.
Unless there are other windows in the back of the building.
Like your kitchen windows, you mean?
Yeah.
You could do interior storms on the stained glass windows, or you could make storm panels to fit over the stained glass windows on the outside, but they'd have to be, historically correct. But in the old days, they would do exterior storm windows.
Old days being when.
Long before I was born.
But I mean, in the 1950s, you know, like 40s.
The 20s,
Yeah.
yeah. Right, when they started doing stuff like that.
And it's regular glass that's over the stained glass?
Yeah, just a pane of glass in a wooden frame,
So they created two pane.
yeah.
I guess we'll find out. I mean, because we have to provide some detail.
I mean, yeah, the same can be said of on interior. uh, install acoustic panels. So this is clearly just a rough draft, an initial set of work items. And I think at this stage, we can, if you want to put together a response to this, it probably sounds, I don't know, put words in your mouth, but if there's anything you think needs to be added, even at this rough draft stage, I think it's a good idea to capture them now, even if it's just to bring Laura's attention to it. Like we had a pebble or something go through one of the stained glass windows on the north side. That's, I don't believe is accounted for here, although generally window repair may obviously capture it, but then the second part of the memorandum may have to do with requiring specific information as to the, period appropriateness and specifications for these work items.
So this is what I envision. So a memorandum of action at memorializing our cooperation with the association. And then also, since it's going to be based on the September 19th report of Laura Berwin, identify the things that are mentioned there. And to the extent that they in any way affect the integrity of the structure, that we be able to review once specifications for features are provided, and that the council consider the Preservation Commission's opinions on those items, just kind of reminding them that when it comes to a point that these things are going to be decided, that we want to play some role. But just because I don't know that we need to get any more detailed now, because again, this is obviously just conceptual right now.
Right.
And I don't know what else, I don't really know what else to add. I'm not really hearing anything with any specificity to add, and I don't want to just throw things on there that I don't know and that nobody on this commission knows to throw on there. When I say on there, I mean the list of things that, she's identified.
So I can tell you that over the last 3 years, there have been more than 1 or 2 iterations of this list of work items. Some of which was addressed when the ADA repairs were made, because it had to do with water in the basement and the flashing on the north side, and some of the things that were causing the water intrusion, which were on the punch list originally, have been dealt with in the ADA work. So that said, I think this is fairly complete, but I would feel better knowing if I could cross-check it with the last known punch list that I worked on. And then in the meantime, I do think we could talk to Laura to see if she can join us. And if there is anything you see as blatantly missing, we should throw it on here. This is the time to do it. But I understand what you're saying about it's hard to do that without if you don't have any specifics. But
Well, I think we've got a legitimate and specific ask with regard to the paint color. I do think that it kind of gets diluted a little bit if we start making sort of general statements about this concept list and adding things on. I want the council to understand that that is a real desire of this commission to be heard on the paint color. And again, I'd rather be focused on that than these other items, because then we'll include that we want to be heard on these other items as well, but I don't want to necessarily bring these things up in the abstract unless I have something concrete to ask for or add on. I want to say I recognize.
And, Tracy, I have a process question. So here's a list of things to be done. Do these now get contracted out to vendors?
right. That
There was no cost estimate provided with this work by this firm, right?
Yeah, there's nothing specific to Art's point. There's nothing specific enough yet to prepare a cost estimate, but the Laura's retained to prepare, call it, if the bid document that's going to go out to contractors to bid on, think of it like an Oreo. There's a set of documents that the borough engineer prepares for the front and the back, and Laura's work is in the middle, which is the specifics as it pertains. It will be her bid specific, sorry, her bid specs are going to come from this list. She's going to design it, spec the things, whether it's windows or what kind of stone dust or concrete the bike pad is going to be. She's going to prepare all of that for a bid document that then will go out to bid.
Okay, I asked because, I don't know which council member it was, but somebody, maybe one or two, said they really want this done in time for the anniversary, and I'm thinking, how long is this bid process gonna take? That was
Yeah.
sort of
Well, then-
the goal was to have this done.
I think
for
that
the-
was me, Steve. I certainly feel that way.
But then
Um,
some Peter did it this meeting.
the bid process itself doesn't take long, but it's the process to work through the council meetings. You know, each meeting, there's a decision, it's made incrementally. This is the pace of government, and the reason for it is it gives opportunity for the public to weigh in, believe it or not.
Good question. Under interior, when they say install the acoustical panels, do we know whether that's gonna be a fabric wrapped panel, something dropped, or are they attempting to replicate the old original tin panels?
I think that, oh yeah, you're not asking, were you asking me that question?
Yeah.
Well, right, so I think, to Art's point, this is a basic rough draft of initial set of work items or conceptual, pretty much, we could call it conceptual. And it hasn't been determined, it hasn't been designed, it hasn't been specified, there's been no community feedback, so I don't know, is the straight answer.
What, Tracy, what is the next step with regard to the Goldstein partnership, providing more specificity to these physical work items?
If, I mean, that's part of what I'm gonna pursue. I'm gonna try to get more specifics for you on that. But if I'm Laura, I'm gonna wait to get direction from the government, which will could then be communicated by Chris York. The communication I think that Chris York can give her at this point is, you know, if there's any action at all, it's to please continue to develop the list of work items with greater specificity. So at that point, you know, as that work continues, there'll be more for this body to respond to.
When's the next time that this will be in any form an agenda item before council?
That's one of my questions. And you guys know I don't set the agenda. That's done by the mayor. I know when I get my packet in the mail. But I can pursue that to see if I can give you a more direct or specific answer. Which I will do. I hopefully I can give you something. And if I get a date, I'll make sure Sheila has it so she can advise you.
Okay, great. Anything else with regard to Bicentennial Hall? Anything from the audience on Bicentennial Hall?
No, separate question I have for when you guys are finished.
Okay, any questions from anyone on Zoom about Bicentennial Hall? All right, we'll move on. And the next item is the capstone. And our man Steve just left. I forgot to ask him about it. He got his updated info on the capstone.
Did you want to make a motion to, you said something about make a motion to have that historic association proceed with pursuing an analysis?
Of the capstone?
No, of the color analysis.
Yeah, well, I made that motion and it was seconded. Didn't we vote on it?
Oh my gosh, yes, sorry.
I don't.
You must have been too excited.
You're supposed to.
Sorry, I must have pressed it on.
You let my seconds get by. I'm not supposed to. 21 Fairhaven Road, Tracy, what is up with that?
The remediation work is underway. We can expect the house to be removed, I would say. With the, you know, I can't know exactly when, but the remediation is proceeding according to schedule. And the next thing is to demolish the house. So maybe in the next 2 weeks, probably sooner. I'm trying to be conservative because I don't know exactly. And then there's some large debris that will be removed, not the capstan. That is secured. It will not be, you know, it will be safe there. Nobody's going to throw it out accidentally. And then some rough regrading. You know, and the intention, unless we learn something else when they're in there moving the dirt around, but the intention is that it would then be safe and accessible. It would be kind of in its very rough state, not yet a park, but not a hazardous not a hazardous site either. So it's happening.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else making it as big a deal as the capstan is. By worship by the time we're done. Okay, Haggerty, 27 to Normandy Avenue, that was the people who did the restoration work didn't necessarily abide by our recommendation as far as the windows concerned. I have gone by there. I see that there's still construction ongoing, that people live there, but they're doing work. I know, I was going to send I did send an email to her, which I didn't get a response back.
That's right.
I indicated that I was gonna do it again, but I did see the construction ongoing, so I didn't wanna jump on that. So when I see that construction work has slowed down, I will email her regardless. But I didn't wanna, jump on that, so I'm gonna shelve that for, table that until next month. And then the last item is landmark considerations for the New Jersey 250 grant. Tracy, I know we had some discussions on that. It seems like that time has kind of come and gone to make that application.
Yeah. Well, unless they extend the deadline, that happens often.
Okay, but we have no indication at this point that they're extending the deadline.
No, we had a very
Sheila-
small window to pull it together, so.
Yeah, exactly. And Sheila, you're gonna monitor that to see if it opens
Yes,
up
if
again.
anything comes, yeah, if I see
I don't know.
anything, I will let you know for sure right away.
Okay,
Nice.
what else do we do? We approved the minutes and we approved the meeting dates. Anything else from the Historic Association on any other items?
A few things.
Yeah,
Okay, so we have officially begun our process, to create our very first online digital archive, which is really exciting. So now we're just compiling everything that we have and we're gonna send it off to this company, that we have hired, and we don't really have a time frame yet as to when that would really be functional, but it has begun.
I'm sure it's gotta be a overwhelming task. There's so much stuff that has to be archived.
Yeah, but it has to happen. This is a really big deal. It's gonna be so great. Something that we could share with the community and the schools, and so yeah, willing to take that on. It's just so important.
It's on the website, it'll be.
That will live on the new website
Okay.
as a separate landing page.
Is it,
And
no, it kind of what we're talking about, we mentioned is that that little booklet that was put together in 1955, and then you have Tim McMahon who did his thing, you have Pat, but unless it's archived, it kind of,
right, unless it's,
just
yeah,
kind of goes by the wayside, that.
yeah, so we're working on getting everything digitized. So last week I met with Cheryl Romano, who's the director of curriculum for the Fairhaven School District. Just to learn more about how their K-8 is structured. And we started generating some ideas on how to get more of the history of Fairhaven into the schools and how to do that per grade level. So we have a few things that we're each going to look into, potentially maybe starting field trips into Bicentennial Hall in the fall of 2026, and how that would work. And so those discussions have started. And as of right now, the heaviest emphasis on the Fairhaven history is in first grade for about a week. In the spring, and there's not much else. So I think it's again, so important once we get the website, filled more in the digital archive, everyone can share it with the schools, and it's gonna be such a great resource to use K-8 in so many different ways. And I showed her the bunch of the AI renderings that we have on the website, and she was just thrilled. She's like, this is gonna get the kids' attention big time. So we are working on a few ideas for that. The Historic Association and the Fairhaven Business Association have partnered to throw a townwide event on Sunday, December 14th, pending some approvals. We're calling it Yuletide on Main Street. And it's going to be a townwide shopping event. Santa will be at the firehouse. Bicentennial Hall will be open. The Historic Association will do a few different things, custom gift, complimentary gift wrapping. And it's just a really good opportunity to showcase the building, on a day that people, are out and about and shopping. And we have a trolley that would make, it easier for people to get from each end, west and east end of the business district. And yeah, so we're waiting on a few approvals from that, but that should be about 11 to 5 on Sunday, December 14th. And the last thing I have is, maybe you can speak more to this, Art, we had an event in the works.
Yeah, so the 250th anniversary, in conjunction with the Historic Association, we were supposed to have a speaker at Bicentennial Hall on either January 21st or 28th. That was going to be Randall Gabriellan. He was the person that had agreed to do it, but he unfortunately passed away. So now we're trying to pivot to Chris Brenner, who I've had a hard time getting in touch with though.
I got in touch with him.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's
Okay,
gonna
so I'll talk about it offline and get that taken care of. So the idea would be to have that and do it since his speech and did he say he's available, he would do it? Oh, excellent. So would primarily revolve around the McCarter estate, so it would involve Rumson as well. So we're going to do it ideally in conjunction with Rumson. And any updates on the Century Home program?
No, still working on the application, and building that as also a separate landing page on the website. So that's still a work in progress.
And again, I didn't get a chance I forgot to bring them, but I had those items for you. Anything else on Historic Association?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to add one thing, since you mentioned Randall, Gabrielle and, Brilliant. I think it'd be nice for us as a commission, just to make a statement that so much of his book actually has documented the historic district, the homes, the look of the homes, what happened in the homes. So I just want to state for me personally that he was my introduction to the history of Fairhaven. His books were the first thing I looked at and began my interest in history and the trajectory I ended up wanting here. So just a thank you to him.
Yeah.
I wish when Elise told me the horrible news that, well, the great news that he was gonna be the speaker, and then just how profoundly sad it is that we don't have that opportunity to hear him speak one more time.
Yeah, I spoke with them
Yeah.
at the the County Historic
Yeah.
Association Symposium at Brookdale.
Mm-hmm.
He's involved in a bunch of different projects. He's done books similar to the historic book on Fairhaven in other towns. And our discussion, he was actually going to be talking about some broader items, but he was going to be bringing these books because a lot of the younger people in town don't know this book and I think would be very interested in it. So I think he was starting to get increasingly excited about it, but
He had like a whole topic already. It was,
Yeah. I was actually so surprised when, was there any, I had been looking a couple of times for any more information on that, so it wasn't really much information.
huge loss.
Yeah, so, but hopefully, we'll do this other thing, we'll talk about it again offline, get that taken care of. Okay, anything else on?
I can't help myself, just one thing for these, the program you're set up online for your repository. An example of what I'm suggesting is that, or possibly on there, you have narratives and stories that are one level deeper than what people see. So we have the plaque now for the police station, and it was reviewed by a historian and it's finalized. But it's a historical plaque with dates and things that happened, but it doesn't have the context of, for instance, the story that we were first given. So there are a whole lot of historical context that we can add to some of these stories that would be really interesting to high school or middle school, depending on the level, interesting to every level. But just as an example, the police station and colored school and the church,
And I think,
every picture on the wall in the church has another story. It might be about economics, it might be about politics, it might be about globalization or something, but there's a lot of ways you can go with some of these
right,
things.
and I think when at least I missed the last meeting, but the previous meeting, and it's, if you model what Red Bank did, and they're using the same company that the association is gonna use. When we say digital scanning, it's not just scanning
Okay,
things, it's also links to existing, so the website can have links to existing articles, it can have links to. Like, I know the article you're talking about, which the story of the police station or the colored school.
yeah, the one.
So there, yeah, the one we all looked at.
And it's fine.
So- I believe the website can be anything we want it to be, and
With layers and
with layers and layers.
Just gotta make sure it's accurate, a lot of these images and stuff, you know, you don't really know, so.
Right,
And what Red Bank does is they, for example, they'll have a link that says such and such is, you know, John Doe's collection. So anything under there are his things, his scans, his art, his pictures, so. There are ways to, like you said, history can be subjective, obviously, but, yeah, so I
On the, sorry, on the topic related to the former black school, has everyone seen the narrative produced by the historian, the county historian?
Yeah,
I just want to make sure the commission members have it.
did you verify the accuracy, Steve?
yeah, that's pretty accurate, but if there's a big story, it's not there.
Right.
There's certainly more that can be on the website. But did the commission get a copy of it?
Yeah,
Yes.
you did send it to me.
I did,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
But not for review though, just for
Yeah.
everybody.
We acknowledge receipt.
Yeah,
maybe that's a blessing, Katie.
yeah, yeah, I understand.
Okay, anything else from the association, good? Public comments,
Not on the topics you guys talked
it's
about,
okay.
just a general question, I heard you guys mention a budget a few times, do you guys have one for the year, do you like allocate certain funds?
Do you mind if I have you just give me your name for the
Oh,
record?
sure, Sammy, Sammi Roberts.
Yeah, I don't believe, I mean, there was a time that we did have a budget, but there was a sort of shuffling around, and we do not currently have a budget, so we're all volunteers. Sheila, our secretary, is a borough employee who, that I suspect is our budget allocator.
Part-time.
Uh,
No, Ben.
So that's, so we do not, so we render not decisions, but recommendations. And again, we're all citizens of Fairhaven and residents of Fairhaven, and we do it voluntarily, so we don't need a budget.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, my name's Tristan Holter.
What's your last name?
Holter.
Walter?
What are some ways you guys think we could keep people in town informed about the significance of the historic buildings?
Yeah, so you heard there's these two groups working sort of parallel. They have different functions, but the association has nothing to do with the borough. It's a group of people that are heavily, they're organized, very enthusiastic about maintaining the history and education. And they basically are doing just that. They're creating the website, this repository of documents and photographs and other images and other likenesses and things of that nature to try to get the word out, because it's amazingly quick how generations turn over, and at some point people know things, and then those people either move away or pass away, and then a lot of information is just simply lost. And maybe at least you want to expand on that a little bit as to the efforts of the association
Yeah.
doing just that.
So right now, besides, so these two books. And a whole bunch of Facebook comment photos. That's pretty much all we have as far as where you go to find the history of Fairhaven.
Do you know the books that she's talking about? They're two books that basically.
I'll take a look at them.
Yeah. two volumes of, but a lot of them are from what are called Dorn Images. There was a photography studio in Red Bank, and they just did a lot of local photography, and so a lot of the images were preserved, and it was investigation by the author, Randall Gabrielens, the guy who we just said passed away, to get a little bit of information and his own investigation as to different photos. And so you'll see a lot of houses and structures, some of which are no longer there, some of which, shows the historic photos of different things in town.
So, yeah, so the plan is we just, 2 months ago, just created our first website for the association. The borough has a landing page on their website with some brief, facts and photos. But the intent was to start a website and then start the process to do an online digital archive and start scanning everything and anything we have, neighbors, residents have. And so it'll live online, and that and social media. And just get it all digitized, because right now, if you're looking at it, those 2 bucks are pretty much it.
I'm trying to see what I can recognize.
Did you grow up in Fairhaven?
Yeah, I have.
Where you grew up in Fairhaven?
On Cambridge, like right behind Knollwood.
Okay. Yeah, that was farmland back then.
Mhm. So you probably,
Look for corn.
you probably are a good, proof of how much Fairhaven history did you get in your K-8?
They probably have those books upstairs at the library, right?
They do, there's no shelf.
I think I've seen one of these.
Did you go to RFH?
Yeah,
Or you graduate?
2020.
Okay. Both of you guys?
Yeah, I graduated in 2021.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
No, that should do it.
How are things on Easton Avenue, Rutgers, all good?
Yeah, we go to school on the Brookdale campus.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Thank you guys for letting us stop in and listen. It was sort of last minute us coming to the meeting.
Well, if you get some credit or whatever. Not a problem.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Okay, anything else? Make a motion that we close the meeting.
Second.
What about this meeting?